Everybody tuning in out there, and welcome to Panoramic Perspectives, and that is hosted by Dead Air Nation. And all of our guests are very special, and they have something to do with paranormal research, I would say, parapsychology. And well, tonight we have a specialist in, he has multifarious interests and a wealth of research and experience, but he is probably best known for his results with EVP, electronic voice phenomena. We're going to be talking about that, the origins of EVP, not exclusively, but that has a lot to do with our show tonight. I don't think there's any paranormal researcher that hasn't had something to do with electronic voice phenomena as far as recording them, capturing voices that we think are from beyond. Um, some people think they're nonsense, they're imagining. Other people think this is a key to the spirit world. The best evidence we can have is, a recording of a spirit voice, or thought to be deceased persons. But I don't know if we'll ever have adequate answers, but that's what we're going to be discussing. And I'll be happy to introduce our guest in just a moment. So we are Panorama Paranormal. Elise Gianmarco Carlson obviously is not with me tonight, and it's our loss because she's, I think she makes the show. She's terrific. And she always researches, a plethora of research goes into each show before broadcast. So, without further ado, we welcome Mr. Joe Rainone. And he's
Hey,
with us. Oh,
how are you? How are you?
another night can go on. Yeah. I knew you were backstage anyway. Hi there, Joe.
Hey, how are you, Carl?
I could wear a headset. I probably should because it looks more professional. I just don't need it, with the audio here. I can easily adjust it.
I
But
feel comfortable with a headset. I don't know. I just like it
yeah,
better.
when you get used to it, it does look kind of nice. You probably are too young to remember Arthur Godfrey.
And I'm not that young, but I remember Arthur Godfrey.
You do? Oh my word! Yeah, I used to watch Arthur Godfrey when he was live, and he always had the headset on. Oh, coming to you, Arthur Godfrey show. Yes, he has a well modulated voice. Well, first of all, what's new with you, and what events or investigations do you have lined up? There's always something you're doing. You're very active. I've seen you, of course, the USS Salem, as we run into each other several times
Yeah,
there.
we always
Uh,
bump into each other.
oh yeah, yeah. Sometimes we're in the dark, so we do bump into each other. In fact,
Literally.
yeah.
Yes, that's a true statement.
In fact, a little under 3 weeks ago, we were at Warren's Seekers of the Supernatural in Mohegan
That's right.
Sun, in
That's
Uncasville,
right.
Connecticut, and you did bump into me. I was like, boom, gee, it's crowded here, and it was Joe. All right. And another place
I had to get your attention somehow.
it was busy.
You
Yeah,
were surrounded with a crowd of people.
I was. Thank you very much. I was. The people waited in line to see. Well, my brother as well, of course.
Of course.
I talked to more people. My brother sold more books than I. So yeah, and another place is the house in Harrisville.
Yep. We've had some
Village of
memorable
Barterville
we've had some memorable experiences there for sure.
that we
Yeah.
have, and I look forward to going back there. Hopefully, when you will be there. You're there not infrequently. You know. And there was a time when we used to run into each other through invitation, of course, at historic Slater Mill in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Now, Slater
Yeah.
Mill is there. The building still is there. The three buildings on campus. Slater Mill has been there since 1793. Regretfully, I no longer have access to old Slater Mill. I started.
I'm bummed about that because
Yeah.
we had a really I think that was the first night I it's definitely the first night we investigated. I don't know if it was the first night we ever met or not, but it was definitely our first investigation together, and we got that child
Yes.
EVP near one of the looms.
Right.
Yeah.
What was unique about Slater Mill, except that it's, of course, regarded as actually renowned as the birthplace of the American Industrial Revolution, kicking off in 1793. And it didn't exactly give birth to the cotton mill industry, but it promulgated, and like there was an explosion of industry with Slater Mill and Samuel Slater refining those processes, that he brought over from England. Long story, historic. But it was also renowned for being a haunted site. And each one of the three buildings on that campus had its unique I'd say master spirit. The one in Slater Mill proper was Jacob. He was a little boy, child, and boy, I tell you, if you doubted that spirit can actually talk through a recording device or an audio mechanism, you'd probably be convinced unless you just had an off night. Investigating in old Slater Mill. I love to invite people there. Cannot do that anymore because Slater Mill in 2020 was acquired by the National Park Service. And so things changed. All the staff was changed. And I can go in there for a tour myself, and they're very gracious. The ranger staff remembers me, and they invite me to give part of the tour. But I can't give a ghost hunt there anymore.
Jeez,
And I
what a
miss it. That was
What
a
a
golden
shame.
era. I was employed at Historic Slater Mill within a week, actually within 2 days of it being 14 years. So I was there just a few days over 14 years, employed with Old Slater Mill Association. And since 2008, I was giving the evening tours, the ghost tours. And it was what started out as an entertainment became a very serious project because people were getting results. It was
Mm.
supposed to be just telling about the spooky things that I and others had experienced at Old Slater Mill, and then it really turned into something. And I love to invite people. It became a mecca for people came from California, people came from Canada to investigate Old Slater Mill, and Slater Mill just did not disappoint.
No,
And I believe that
definitely
was
not.
if I had met you before, it was across a room at a convention and waving to each other. "Oh, I know him," but when we really talked and investigated, it was at Slater Mill. So you and I do have that history. That's why I'm
Hmm.
spending a couple of minutes reviewing those golden times at Slater Mill. But you certainly don't stay still long.
No, no,
You know,
no.
I don't know.
I don't want to get, I don't want, moss to cling to me. So I like to move around a lot.
Well, what's driving you? I mean, you're just so
Kyle, I'll be damned
interested.
if I know, because every time I'm driving somewhere, I'm like, why am I driving 3+ hours again? And, it's like, I think this is going to be my last one for a while. And then I'll get a call. Hey, next weekend we're doing this. I can't say no.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know what it is. Even though in my mind tells me take a break, slow down. It just, when an opportunity comes, I'm like, okay.
right. Driving Miss Daisy and driving you crazy. You are. New England is your beat. You're usually between Maine and Rhode Island and into the six New England states, sometimes in New York. But you're usually around here. I know you do travel, but
Yeah.
generally it's something in New England. Oh, hello, Sarah Yusuf. What makes New England special in terms of quality and quantity in the paranormal activity? I think because the New England area was so long ago settled. I mean, if you're leaving out the indigenous peoples settling by people from England and other European countries, goes back so far. There are many memories have been imprinted. There was the skirmish there.
This is where the country was founded.
Yeah, so many beginnings here. I mean, the country is compared to many of the European countries is relatively young at about 500 years, rounding it off. But those first settlements here established this as a nation and built from there.
And the
But
bloodshed, and all the
yeah, King
bloodshed between
Philip's War,
the King Philip's
Civil
War,
War,
the Civil War. I mean, that was the King Philip's. That was the Indian population almost got completely wiped out, if I'm not
in
mistaken.
this region, yes, yes, it did. They were decimated in a very real sense. And it seems New England has exhibited and brought out the best and the worst in human beings. The remarkable achievements in such a relatively short time, historically speaking, but also the bloodshed, the confrontations, the war, the usurpations. Yeah, it's been a horror show and it's been grand. And so I think that's why even Providence, Rhode Island. I live in the greater Providence area and was born here and grew up here. And Providence is said to have its own zeitgeist. There's a feeling you get. It's kind of an eerie, melancholy sense that people get when they first come to Providence, Rhode Island. And Providence can be a very interesting city and area if you don't live here, and if you're taking a tour of the settings. And it's got a lot of hauntings in it too, per capita. Actually, Rhode Island is even known as the vampire capital of America because of all the instances. between 1740 and 1892 when bodies were exhumed under suspicion of vampirism. So all kinds of wacky, weird things going in. And Providence was founded under a premise of tolerance. The lively experiment founded by Roger Williams. He came here in 1636. So, and the house in Harrisville, the Conjuring House,
Hmm.
was built and first occupied in 1736, a mere century afterwards. But there's plenty to investigate here, Joe. There's, the scene is
There is.
lively, the area, minus Slater Mill now.
Yeah,
Uh,
maybe someday that'll change.
I'd like to think it'll open up again, and I'll be at the ready. Would love to. Let's see. Oh, I just got to read this question. I can't devote the whole hour to reading questions. But what was the EVP of the child's voice at Slater Mill that Joe caught? Yeah, what was that one that you got?
Carl, that was so long ago and so many EVPs ago. I honestly don't remember. All I remember and we couldn't really just. It was that young that we couldn't distinguish whether it was a little boy or a little girl. The voice was
Right.
that. Yeah, I have it somewhere, but I honestly don't remember what they said. But there was an EVP there because we're talking about what 4 years ago now. I don't know
Yeah.
how many countless EVPs in between now and then I've gotten.
Yeah. Between 4 and 6, and there. Well, that it was kind of a ubiquitous child voice. We used to get a child voice and consistently recording at Slater Mill and hearing audibly, AVP, audible voice phenomenon, you could call it. Um, and it was hard to distinguish between a male or a female child.
Yeah, definitely.
The-
Yeah, could have went either way for sure.
yeah, uh, indications were it was a child's voice,
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a
which
doubt.
kind of fits into history because those mills in New England and New York and Pennsylvania were notorious for employing child labor in the later 18th and first couple of decades of the 19th century. Child labor, children 6 years and older were working in those mills, and then there were more women working in the mills than
Well,
children.
they used to send them in there to fix the machinery because an adult couldn't get into those tight spaces, and God only knows what industrial accidents happened to some of these poor kids. I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they said they were exploited, of course. Like, if that's too mild a term, abused maybe, because the children could get into these machines and do repairs and keep them running, maintain the machines. They could crawl in, crawl out. Didn't always make it out in time.
No, I'm sure.
Very valuable resource, and it wasn't slavery, and probably it's been somewhat exaggerated, but there were deaths and maimings of workers, children. Maybe it wasn't exaggerated because they're in the books. A lot of these things did happen. And I think that had a lot to do with Slater Mill being haunted. It was also the Blackstone River, which was the
Mm,
power source for the machinery.
that's
So,
true. Yeah, as a conduit right there.
yeah. And even with like a K2 meter and various EMF detectors, I could detect a fluctuation in the energy. When you got near the river, it would spike. These instruments would go up. So there was obviously an electric charge, like it would be about the level of a D cell battery, but it was there, and it was all through those areas, all through that area of the dam, the river where the water was cascading and hitting the rocks. So I think that helped to power the haunting there. The tragedies, the accidents, the fact that many people toiled there, like for 12 hours a day, and or it might just be the geographical location too. It might be lime underneath, but I think it's a confluence of factors. It was haunted. Things were going on there, and I had no doubt
Without
about that.
without question. And I didn't need more than one investigation to know that. That's for sure.
Right. And I remember seeing there was a Christmas party we went to, but also a paranormal investigation. We went there, and that was about that. I think was that 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago,
It
Christmas.
had to be 3 or 4 in that
Yeah,
in
I
that
think about
window.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it was probably 2019, and we went into all three buildings, which we could do. What a gold mine that was! What an
Yeah,
echo chamber.
I'm so happy for that experience because of the situation now. So,
Yeah, not all good, but that was part of your experience, part of your training, or part of your broadening your own horizons.
Mm-hmm.
Because
100%.
you almost were guaranteed to have activity there if you went, and you could record it. So what's going on now with you? I mean, currently, if you have a central project? I don't know if you there are various interests, but I don't know if you.
Well,
I'm interested in one of the things
well,
I
you asked me.
really like.
So probably the next investigation for me is going to be the Cash Town Inn down in Gettysburg. I got invited down there in December, and that's quite a jaunt. That's another long ride. You're talking 7-8 hour ride, and I was really, and again, I was on the fence. I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to really, drive 8 hours down, 8 hours back.
Yeah, you can go to Pennsylvania, and it's the GPS might say it's 6 hours, sometimes even 5 hours to get into the state. But then you have to get to your destination, and it's always kaflooey, and
Yeah.
GPS isn't always accurate. And once you're there in the town, you still have to find the place, park, set up, and all. So it is an ordeal every time. But I'm sure you're looking forward to it.
Yeah, I am. I am. I'm not looking forward to the commute, but I'm definitely looking forward. I've never invested in the Cash Town Inn, and I was on the fence about it because I was hoping after Halloween to take a little break. Uh, that hasn't worked out, so I'm gonna do it, and that'll hopefully be the last one for the year. Anyway, we'll see.
For the year, it's the middle of November, and you're hoping that'll be the last one for the year, unless somebody
I
calls
gotta
in.
take a break. I gotta take a break.
Yeah. What have you learned in all of this? I mean, I think we pretty much have confirmation that while ghosts haven't officially been proven, there's something that exists, something that continues. Disembodied intelligences, however you define them. I mean, that's been proven to your satisfaction, I'm sure.
Oh
Uh,
yes, without a doubt.
Many times over and years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah.
If you could encapsulate what you've learned, what would you say it is? What has this done for you? Um, Uniquely you, let's say.
Well,
Probably the
it's
same thing
it's
it's done
it's
for me.
it solidified my skepticism for sure, because
Yeah.
I started this whole thing wondering if what was on television is real or not. Watching the shows, seeing them getting EVPs, and I'm like, is that a legit thing? Or I mean,
Right.
it's so easy to stage a fake EVP. I mean, especially on TV. I mean, with editing or whatever. Um, So the fact that I was able to get my own EVPs and I know that they're legit, and it's like, all right, those voices came from somewhere. Okay.
Right. Lorraine Nyoff says, she just commented that energy is never gone. Um, well, the old axiom, physics, uh, energy cannot be created nor destroyed by ordinary chemical means. And it can be transmuted, it can be harnessed, or it can be changed, it can be directed. But we're talking about energy as a very broad term. I don't think ghosts are made of electricity, but they can use electricity to help communicate, electronic powered devices. They can't speak acoustically. Well, it seems sometimes they do because I've heard voices, but even those aren't really, creating a wave in the air molecules. There's something eerie about when you hear an audible voice,
Yeah.
disembodied
I've,
voice.
I've, on- I've only, that's only
It's
happened to me
rare.
two. It's very rare. So I'm in my 10th or 11th year doing this now, and it's only happened to me 2 times.
Wow.
Yeah.
What I've noticed about I think it's about 7 times I've heard. But then again, I was working at Slater Mill.
Oh, okay.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah.
Most days at Slater Mill were business as usual, but since I was there so much, the uncanny would occur. Oh, oh, oh! A Facebook user says Carl and Keith are New England legends.
I will
I was
agree with
trying to
that statement.
thank you so much. We'll expand that legend. Keep working at it. Um, but when you hear an AVP, a spirit voice, what I've heard, and the one early one I heard was at Anawan Rock, Rehoboth, Massachusetts.
Okay. Yeah.
I was with a few friends, and I'm always the first one to the top of the rock. It's easy to climb because it's pudding stone, as long as you're careful. It's pebbled rock. And I got up to the top, and I heard two men talking very distinctly and clearly. Uh, there was something eerie about it. Well, for one thing, it sounded like an Algonquin dialect tongue. It wasn't English, but it had that like
Hmm.
kind of Native American inflection, but of course a language I did not at all recognize. And it was two men speaking. But then it stopped. We see when we speak and our voices come across acoustically, there's always a tiny echo at the end of what we say. And we're so used to it, we don't even notice it. But when it's a spirit voice or in AVP, it suddenly stops like in a vacuum. There's no resonance to it. You hear the sound and then it stops, and you may think that voice was a little eerie. Anyway, they weren't speaking English. I looked over the edge of the rock, the sharp drop where the rock is cleaved. Nobody there. I really expected to see two men there. Yeah, look what we got here. Looking over that, and
Nice.
down, so yeah, right in the center of that photo is where those voices emanated from, that area, and yet nobody there. And I
Yeah.
was downright surprised because I wasn't even thinking spirit voices. They sounded so real. You know, I think I first heard such voices out in the woods in where I grew up in North Scituate, Rhode Island. I used to hear voices out there. Oh, somebody heard our lecture 2 weeks ago. Yeah. Um,
Oh,
so
Denise is asking about the mind blocker. No, no, Denise. I'm looking for more subjects. If you're
more
interested,
willing
let me know.
subjects, so they're hard to find. The mind blocker. Yeah, see what you
That
can
was
do with that.
interesting. That was
Yeah.
interesting.
So, EVP are voices of dead people. That's an oversimplification. And as you mentioned, it's some of the greatest evidence, the most convincing evidence to capture if you know the people who recorded it or you yourself have. And it's also one of the easiest to contrive. It's
Yeah,
easily fixed.
you get a lot of bang for your buck there. You know, some people
Yeah,
spending a lot of money on equipment, and you can get yourself a cheap recorder, and
right. I mean,
you
you
know,
think some of these, and it's even been popularized where somebody will just run in front, put a sheet on or dress in white, run in front of a camera with a low shutter speed. It's at the aperture, so it's slow, and then just run in front of a camera or whisper into a recording. I could do some good EVP voices. I've got quite a range, but yeah. So you have to know who was recording, and I, of course, Joe. If it was you, I know it's real. That's why that last time we were together at Slater Mill was so precious to me because there were some partiers. It was the Christmas party. Their office, and they wanted a paranormal investigation for the Christmas party. Then there were the serious guys, and you stayed in Slater Mill with a few of them. There was Corey Hines and Bill Brock and you, and you got some things done that night. You got some good voices.
yeah,
Um,
for sure.
are they? I don't know if there is a direct answer, if it can be like fully interpreted, but in your experience, in your opinion, are these spirit voices of people who have passed on, and they're still close to our own world, our physical world? There's something of their personality that remains. They're cognizant, aware of us, and they speak to us. That's one interpretation. Are they something from our subconscious that we're projecting? Which doesn't answer any questions, but they seem to be deceased people. They seem to be people who are like us and are still around. I
Yeah,
don't
I mean, like, and again, the voices are coming from somewhere. So, is it an alternate? Is it a parallel dimension that what's happening to, and these people aren't deceased, but I've gotten names that when we researched it, it was a neighbor 2 houses down went by that name, and that's deceased, and so I'm in the belief that it's a spirit. It's a dead person. I don't think it's a alternate reality we're tapping into, or a parallel dimension or anything like that. I think it's the afterlife. Where they are in the afterlife, I'm not sure. I mean, that's up
Yeah,
for
they're not too
debate.
specific when they answer. Those few times they answer our questions, it's usually like monosyllabic or one or two words or
It's
yes.
it's it's rare to get a sentence, but I've actually gotten a few sentences. But yeah, it's rare to get a full sentence.
Yeah,
And
a sentence where you have a syntax and a object of a preposition, you got to complete the sentence. But you've got some. They
oh
may be
God,
three
yeah,
words,
for
they may
sure,
be
yeah.
five. Can you give me an example? I don't know if you have one that you can readily play for us, or if you just want to tell us about it, because the more clear they are, the more intelligible they are, the more interesting they become.
Yeah, I'm
I
trying to think
doubt.
what I got for a full sentence. But I mean, one of the better ones that recently captured was on the USS Salem. Two separate investigations. We were in the surgery room, and we were around the surgery table. We had a few recorders out on the table, and that's the mark of an EVP. So if you have 4 or 5 recorders out, they're gonna pick one to leave it on, and then all right, this is an EVP because the other 4 recorders didn't pick up anything. And I just, we were in the surgery room, so I asked,
Oh, yeah.
who was the chief of surgery, and clear as day, me, McVeigh, clearer than how I just said it to you just now.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And Don De Cristofaro, him and I tried to tie that name back. We just couldn't tie the name McVeigh back. Was Don's still trying to see what
Yeah.
you know so follow-up investigation, couple of either weeks or maybe a month or two later, we were back. It was a separate group of people. We were back in the surgery room, and we tried to do like a little skit. One of the girls put on the doctor's smock, and her sister got on the table, and she was just like, oh, she's like, I'm not a doctor, and like, can anybody give me any type of advice? And her sister was on the table, and she's like, oh, please help them. And I said, I go, Dr. McVeigh, I'm like, what do you think of this? Do you have any suggestions on what type of anesthesia we should use? And you just hear, let's cut her.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
don't you think there had to be a doctor, Dr. McVeigh? Now, I was with you the first one, but I wasn't there for the,
The
wasn't there
follow-up. Yeah, that's correct. You were with me for that first one. That's
that
just right.
first
I
one. I was
forgot
Dr.
about that,
McVeigh.
Carl.
Okay.
Yes, we
And I
got
remember
McVeigh.
we were also hearing a woman uh, moaning.
Yes, we got
Yeah, we were
audibly a woman
hearing that.
moaning. Yep,
That was one of those rare times you mentioned.
right. We had REM pods stationed throughout the hallways of the ship, and we started getting REM pod trips leading up towards the surgery room. That was a very active night. Yeah, yeah. I forgot we were together that night. I totally forgot about that. Yeah. So you didn't hear about the follow up one?
That one I didn't hear much about.
Yes. So the
I need to go
follow up
then
one,
back. I saw, like a
follow up
photograph.
one. When I called out Dr. McVeigh, I said, Dr. McVeigh, what do you think of this? I was like, what type of anesthesia should we use? And you just hear, let's cut her, just like
Wow.
that. Yeah, that was
Now,
crazy.
suppose research never turns up, Donna, or anybody never finds anything about any record of a Dr. McVeigh. Does that make it any less real for you? I mean, you've got the voice, you've got the recording.
Yeah,
139.
yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I mean, I don't know. It could have just been maybe a spirit screwing around with us. You know, like, oh, they're looking for some EVPs. I'll leave them some EVPs.
Yeah, you always wonder. Now, there are some people who contend. Let's say, Sarah Joseph says it. Is it possible uh, it was someone who's acting as a doctor, like you
Yeah, like we
described?
just said, 100% possible. Yeah.
There's no guarantee a spirit's going to tell you the absolute truth or even know the absolute truth. Maybe that's their program. Maybe that's what they could say at that time, or maybe they are
Right,
deceptive.
right.
Some persons contend that, and persons as intelligent as I, in fact, one of them looks very much like me. Some people contend that every spirit voice that one hears or is captured, or even indeed every time someone sees an apparition, it's visual manifestation, that it's something inhuman posing as a spirit. Now, that's supposed to be for the purpose of deception, but to me, that just makes absolutely no sense. It doesn't fit any criteria.
I
I
agree with
don't
you.
personally feel that. To each their own belief, but
Correct. To each their own belief. Everybody's got their theories. My theory is as good as yours. Your theory is as good as mine. At the end of the day, I don't think we're going to solve this, but we'll have fun trying.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I enjoyed the debates even because at least it's active. We're talking about it. Now, what does Lorraine Nyoff say? I got to put on the vision correction for this. What about things that are not intelligent interactions but seem somehow recorded on the environment? I
So
think
she's
that
talking
can be called,
like a stone tape theory type thing where
yeah,
yeah,
atmospheric residual. We used to call it.
yeah, yeah,
What do
yeah.
you think about that?
I think it's possible. I think it's possible. I think it's hard to determine whether it's that or not, you know. But I definitely think it's possible. Why wouldn't it be?
Yeah, they don't all have to interact with us. It's just kind of
Right.
more fun when they do. Have you ever had a spirit voice recorded that said your name?
Oh yeah.
You
Oh
must have.
God, yeah.
I know you have in the spirit box, but I think you've
Oh,
also.
oh, I've had yeah. Well, you're talking ITC. I have. Oh, sure,
Yes.
but oh, I've no. I have
Right.
EVPs of them calling my name because I introduce myself. I mean, and getting back to one of the earlier questions that you asked me that I don't think I fully answered. I think technique has more to do with it than equipment.
Right.
You know.
Technique has more to do with it than equipment. I like that.
Yeah, definitely. I've gotten better at it throughout the years. Just my technique and how I address them.
Yeah.
And I think that it resonates to some degree with them. And
Hmm.
that for whatever reason, I feel some type of a connection, and they definitely like leaving EVPs from me, for sure.
Some of them know you. They know you by
I
now.
think so. I think so, and I think they know. I think they know what my intentions are. My intentions are not to make money off this in any way, shape, or form. And
Right.
you
You're
know,
not getting wealthy from these investigations. I
I
mean,
am sadly, I am
well
not
known as
getting
you.
wealthy from these investigations. No, quite the opposite, especially the $4 a gallon gas having to feed my truck to get to these places.
Hmm. Well, you're rich in experience. Let's put it that way.
That's true. That is true.
Now,
You
Sarah
know,
Joseph asked us, "Have you ever received false information for a spirit? You've been lied to by a spirit that you know of?"
not that I know of. How would I prove that? How do you prove that they're lying
Yeah.
to me? Like.
I mean, they could be mistaken. They could not know. Maybe that's all they could say, or she's asking if you know if one has deceived you.
Not that I know a lot of people say, "Oh, be careful when you get a child EVP because that might be something trying to lure you
Yeah,
in." And well, what are they going to lure me into? I mean, they're going to take my credit card information from me.
yeah.
I don't. I'm not. I don't buy that.
Very little about, I shouldn't say paranormal research, but very little about ghost hunting really makes sense
True.
empirically, logically, critically. Um, it doesn't make sense that an intelligence should be hanging around after someone passes away. Why would there still be something there to communicate? Does that happen to us all? Does it happen to some people? They linger here for a while. They no longer have glottis, physical organs, physical brain with which to communicate or even think, and yet we get these indications that they are among us, and it's
Yeah.
easy to
Yeah.
ignore.
I actually had actually had one cough
Yeah.
and acknowledge the fact that he coughed. You just on the EVP, you just hear got a bad cough. That
Wow.
yeah, that was in Clinton train tunnel.
Ah,
Yeah,
it's just that's kind of mind blowing too.
yeah.
I mean, um,
I was in there by myself,
wow.
and it wasn't me who said it.
Yeah. So most of my experiences with recording have been I've been by myself. I don't know if that's helped, but
I think lower numbers. I think they're more apt to come around. You know, and
yeah.
going back to technique. Like I do not like to hold the recorder in my hand for various reasons.
Right.
I don't want a thumb demon. Number
Right.
one.
Yeah. I know you shuffle around
Right, right.
when you
And
pull
and
the
and number two, I want to give them their space. You
Mhm.
know, so I will set it away from me. you know?
Yeah.
So
One thing,
that's
super skeptics, I mean, people who just don't believe that you can communicate with the spirit. Um, I'd take some notes. I'm no Elise Gianmarco Carlson, but apophenia. And I was familiar with that term, but it came up in my researching EVP. It's the propensity for the human ear to interpret something as familiar, and I
yes.
think that happens on the paranormal shows where they have the captions, the subtitles that says, what it said. Really, if you didn't have those letters, you wouldn't maybe hear that.
So you're preconditioned to it
Yeah.
because your eyes are reading it, so you're gonna be predisposed to hear that. Yeah, I agree. And some of the some of the lower class EVPs that people get, that I've certainly gotten, you play it for 5 people and nobody can agree on it. You know,
Mm.
it's like, oh, I think it's saying boat, I think it's saying goat, I think it's saying moat. Um, and then it's very easy to even though you thought it said one thing, then you hear somebody else's opinion. The next thing you know, when you go to listen to it, you're hearing what they thought they heard.
Right.
Yeah, those are the lower class EVPs. Those are the ones that keep me up at night, because I want to know exactly what they said and if it was pertinent to where we were. And if you can't make it out, it is what it is. But it's frustrating.
One of my prize, and it's about your experience, not mine. I could go on and on, and I do. Um, One of the best EVP and the clearest I ever received was at a house in Coventry, Rhode Island. And that house, if somebody asked me, was that demonic? Was it poltergeist? Was it human haunted? Human spirits? I would say, yep, because that an indication of all. If I had to classify it as one, it was poltergeist. But a poltergeist can have a voice. And the homeowner's name was Tina. Our team was investigating, when the family was out of the house, they brought the kids over to Leon's house. They went out and didn't come back till after 3 a.m. So we had the house to ourselves until that time. And the lead investigator, it was her team who called me in. She said, "What should I say?" We were at I remember we were in the dining room, and she said, "What should I say to it?" I said, "Ask if it misses Tina." I say it. We had indications of a male and a female spirit. I said, "Ask if it misses Tina." And so Dawn, the lead investigator, she said, "Do you like Tina? Do you want Tina home?" So that night, I couldn't wait, for the next night. I had to listen to it. I said, "I'm probably not going to get anything, but I have to listen to this 90 minutes of audio." Towards the end, and I hear, "Oh yeah, maybe we'll get something here." I hear Dawn ask, "Do you like Tina? Do you want Tina home?" And I hear, got something. Yeah. I augmented it before we subjected it to Audacity program. I just turned up the volume, and hear Dawn ask that question, and a sibilant male voice answers, "Oh yeah, I'd like to boil Tina." Who says that? It's not even modern parlance. "Oh yeah, I'd like to boil Tina." Boy, did we have fun with the reveal when we brought the laptop over and played it for Miss Tina, the lady of the house, her and her husband Tony. "Oh yeah, I'd like to boil Tina." But you asked, you wanted us to investigate. Boy, was that something. That was never resolved. The couple actually left after a time. We just couldn't quell that. But then again, we weren't on the case for that long, just like a couple of months, you know.
I
So
I've had some that not many, but I've had some that sounded like a different language.
right.
And then I had to actually slow down the recording by half speed to realize it was an EVP of something being said.
Oh, that fascinates the heck out of me.
Yeah.
Was it intelligible when you slowed it down? Could
Yeah.
you?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was asking, about hospice. Where's
Hospice, where
hospice?
people
Where's
generally
hospice?
go to expire comfortably,
Mhm.
you
Yeah,
know, make them as
yeah.
comfortable as possible. Well, now I have to jump in again and tell you about my first ever EVP I recorded question about frequency and spectrum. I'll get to that. Um, I didn't know what an EVP was. When I was 18 years of age, I was recording conversation and some music with a friend of mine, and but the music it didn't have lyrics to it, just background music. We're talking. I played back the recording, not thinking, not listening for anything, and then we hear this like tapping sound, like a code. That's odd. Then I hear, "Someone help me." So we looked at each other, my friend Mark and I, and played it several times. I said, "That's saying someone help me.
Hmm.
That's a that has to be a spirit voice." I didn't know what EVP was until I think 3 years later. I heard it on In Search of, hosted by Leonard Nimoy.
One of my favorite
EVP,
shows.
Voices of the Dead, and so my friend had a recorder. This was cassette tape, and so my brother has one copy that's not very clear, and so it does still exist. But Mark turned the dial, sped it up, and it sounded like a voice in slow motion. He sped it up, and it says clearly, it becomes a woman's voice, and says, "Carl, help me, help," and the tapping is accelerated. So like they're not always the same time frequency as us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Your brother cracks me up because
He cracks
when
me up too. Yeah,
when I see him and he's always, he's got his old analog cassette
he still
recorder, and I
has
see him.
that
I
old
never, I never seen him hit the record button once.
Well, even his old recorder is haunted by something because he keeps getting, especially at Slater Mill, but other places, there is a spirit in that recording device that will only get. Oh, he gets other things too, but it will only say no, no matter what you ask it. It's just he'll get it almost every investigation. The spirit comes out and goes, no. It's not male nor female. It's just that EVP quality voice. No.
Yeah, yeah,
I'd
yeah.
like to ask it. Yeah, I'd like to say, can you say anything else but no? No. Ah, gotcha. But it does. It says no. You know. But yeah, you were saying
He seeing Keith with that old school
that's like a
cassette
trademark.
recorder.
No.
I'm like, I gotta start utilizing that. And I've gone out. I've bought a bunch of handheld cassette recorders. I've scored through various yard sales and thrift stores. I have brand new unopened cassette tapes, and I've yet to bring one out with me on an investigation. But the intent is always there. I want to start doing a little bit of old school analog stuff and see what type
Elise,
of results I get.
Elise has a pretty, what I want to say, pretty classy digital recorder. She's got a couple of them that are, high quality, and not cheap. People get good results with them. But Elise was recording with an analog tape when she got what is as Panorama Paranormal, one of our best EVP, which is actually a voice that seemed emitted from somebody's mind. This man was disturbed by hearing voices, client of ours. This was an investigation we conducted between 2019 and 2020, and uh, he was being haunted by a voice. Now, I say it came from his mind. I'm not saying from his subconscious. So I think that's where it was hiding out in his own mind because I figured, oh, this is textbook psychological malady. He's hearing the voices. It's playing up on his guilt. It's telling him he's worthless. He should kill himself. He needs a psychological therapist, not parapsychologist. Until Elise was playing back the recording. We were in our office and she was playing back the recording, and we heard that voice on the recording. It's captured on the recording. That actually was the
Nice.
subject of an episode of A Haunting called Inner Demons. It's remarkable. So, a couple of things I want to ask you before we inevitably run out of time. Um, what should somebody not do if they're trying to record for spirit voice? What are some caveats that, don't do this, don't do that? I mean, it's basically going in and recording and trying to, you know, eliminate background sources, like don't have somebody with a pocket radio or something, or don't have your phone on, the time or nearby. What not to do besides those?
You definitely want the numbers as small as you can possibly get them. It's easier said than done. But I think again, don't hold the recorder. Set the Milliken battery. I heard of. I got one in Milliken Battery in Bedford, Mass. Too.
Mm,
Yeah, yeah. I got a good one in there. You don't want to hold the recorder. I personally like to set it down and walk a good 4 to 5 feet away.
right.
If there are people with you, you want to tell them, do not whisper, because it's going to get contrived as a potential EVP. The other thing I like to do is I like to put two recorders side by side, and
Coupling.
I'll run two, because they're only going to leave it on one, right? So if you get it on two, then that's was somebody in your group that just
Right.
was undocumented,
Because then it wasn't electronically imprinted.
Right,
Or, some
right,
speaker.
right. Which brings up real quick. Have you ever investigated Rolling Hills Asylum by any chance?
No, I haven't. I missed that by a day or something. I had.
Okay,
I
that
think. I
that's
think
one
it
you,
was
that
because I
that's
had to
one
work
you-
that weekend.
that's
Yeah.
one you want to get out to at some point. But long story short, there is a screaming lady there,
Mm,
uh, and my very first time out there, that's one of the things that Sharon likes to say is, like, if you're down near the morgue, down near the calf, she's like, you might get the screaming lady. A bunch of people got her, this, that, and the other thing. And so that was my goal, was to try and get her that night. I never got her. I went probably another 2 or 3 more times. Now I've gotten other EVPs there, but I always wanted I wanted to hear the scream, and
yeah.
we were up in the
Emulating.
infirmary, which I wasn't expecting it to happen there. But
Mm,
we had there was quite a few people, because it was an event. There was 10 recorders running. 4 of them were my own. 6 other people in the crowd either were running off of smartphones, or they had legit recorders.
right.
And we were doing burst sessions. That's the other thing that I personally like to do, is like a no more than like a 2-minute burst session. Do a live review, boom, right there. I never used to do that. I always just used to record, record, record. And then I realized, I if I had played back when I was in the location, I probably would have been able to get more information if I had known that somebody was there willing to communicate. That's
There we
Rolling
go.
Hills. Yeah.
Rolling hills.
So, one by one, after the burst session, everybody played their recordings, and we get to my very last recording, and you just hear, "Get out!" And again, right? If these aren't physical beings, her voice started cracking.
Mm,
Crazy, crazy, and t- not 9 other recorders in the infirmary did not pick this up.
wow.
You know?
It's as though these beings are they're emulating living persons. They're coming across as that. That's their standard to talk like the living.
She was upset. Whatever she was upset at, I don't know. She was upset. She basically decided, I'm gonna let them know, and I'm gonna talk into that recorder, that one right there on the end. Simple as that.
Mm.
Simple as that.
So what this in
Complicated as that, and as simple as that.
you're right, complex but yet simple in
Right.
its basics. And this tells us that emotions carry over, cognizance, intelligent, the the willingness to interact with living persons, the need to express themselves.
I'll
I'm
have to
still
play that
here.
for you, Carl. You
Yeah,
hear her voice going hoarse because she's so distraught and screaming.
she was once a living person. One
Yeah,
has
yeah.
to think, you know. Okay, that was my first question of this train of thought. The second question: how do you answer the skeptic? And skeptic, of course, is a loaded term. I think every paranormal investigator wants to be somewhat known as being somewhat skeptical. In other words, discriminating. You know, you're not going to buy into everything. And sometimes skeptic just means I'm too smart to be fooled.
I'm
You
I'm
got to
I'm I'm not here to convince anybody of
right.
anything.
Yeah.
Plain and simple, you know.
Yeah.
If I meet an atheist, I'm not going to try and convince him there's a God. But I'm Roman Catholic. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus. If I meet an atheist, I'm not going to try and convert him. Believe what you want to believe. Same thing with an EVP. You I don't know what to tell you other than 9 recorders didn't pick up this scream. This 10th one did. If you have an explanation for it, then I'd be willing to hear it.
Well, there's
But
someone
but
who's
but
yeah.
I mean, I know, like, I mean, you know, Kenny Biddle has helped me debunk some things throughout the years, and I just think that no matter what, I think Kenny's just Kenny, and he's not going to. I don't. I think he's going to have an explanation for everything, and that's fine, But I'm not here to convince him, and if he tells me I'm all washed up, then so be it.
Yeah. Well, in a sense, we need Kenny Biddle, the people of that
We
ilk.
do.
They're going to go out
We
there and challenge. Just because something's a sacred cow, just because something is so cherished and believed in, doesn't mean it
Yeah.
can't be
Yeah,
challenged
yeah, no,
sometimes.
Kenny debunked something that I thought was pretty legitimate evidence, and I learned a lot from him, and I pulled it right down. But I always put, like, even when I do lectures and everything, I'm like,
Yeah.
I start off and saying I am not here to say that everything I'm about to present to you is paranormal. I'm just saying I couldn't debunk it as anything but
Right.
everybody's free to make their own assumptions here, you know.
And I was in Hinsdale House, New York, with Kenny Biddle investigating, and I remember Kenny said, "Well, I was with him on the same page with him. There was a séance there that night that." Well, I helped to expose some things to it. I showed, Kenny, just some things that I thought weren't. I mean, maybe they were presented sincerely, but I thought there was some discrepancy there. Um, but that's a whole other story. But Kenny had said that EVP, there are so many things that can explain them. I say EVP as plural too. He said EVP, so many things can explain them, like radio frequencies, RF. There's a police station anywhere in that radius, or a fire station, always broadcast. CB radios, there's always some static out there. And I'm thinking, you lost me there because no, not always. Not always. Sometimes, yeah, you got to be careful, but most EVP that I've heard and that are legitimate, cannot be explained away.
Yeah.
They're not like
Yeah.
saying, respond to call, respond to this, location. If they're not that, they're messages. Hey, you can debate, is it something from our minds that's doing this, creating it, imprinting it? Is it PK, psychokinetic in a form?
Sure.
Is it a genuine passed on person, a ghost, a spirit? You can have those kind of debates, but saying, are they real? No, they're real. Of that, I have no doubt.
The
You know,
the the very last one I got was a couple of weekends ago up at Wilson Castle,
yes,
and I didn't know that there was a Herbert Wilson. It was the
right.
first time I had heard the name. I was talking to Denise, and it was the first time she mentioned the name Herbert. And then when I was in the dining room, there was like a plaque on the wall. I don't know if Herbert won an award or something like that, but there was a Herbert Wilson relative that definitely had ties to the castle. And one point in the evening, when I was by myself, I was upstairs in the billiard area on the second floor, and I just said, "Herbert Wilson, are you still here?" And
Mm.
he yeah, just like Wilson Castle. Yeah.
Wilson Castle there. I've been there a
Yep.
couple of times myself. I do
Yep.
love Wilson
Yep.
Castle.
I played it for Denise. I'm like, yep. So I mean, I don't know how many, I don't know how many radio stations drop F bombs or how
Yeah,
many,
they're not supposed to. The
right,
FDC
right.
code, you know. Let's see. I had to skip a couple of questions that were kind of cogent, or comments. Paranormal experience seems to be subjective to the observer. Do you find that your experiences have led you to a particular direction or way of thinking? I My answer would be I think you've always thought this way, but has your experiences modified you? Have they led you to a certain direction, a way of thinking about phenomena?
If I never got an EVP, then I would say, you know, then if I need to experience it, okay, in order to validate what I'm potentially seeing on TV, right? So I went years without getting an EVP.
Hmm.
Years. I went many years. I did not get
I have,
one
I have
single
too.
EVP. And then I was beginning to think it was all hooey, you know. And then when I got my first EVP, I was like, "Whoa, where the hell did this come from?" You know. And then again, my technique improved, and as my technique improved, the frequency of me getting EVPs improved.
Hmm. Wow. Um, so you are honing your techniques and refining, but sometimes I think they just you get into a certain mode, a certain vibration, if you will, a frequency, where you are able to tune into these spirits. Just a psychic medium would refine their ability. Somehow you're drawing them. They know your channel now.
I agree with it in two separate occasions. So every, you know, the big, you know, talk and hubbub for years now are the Panasonic DR60s,
Hmm.
right? Like the
Yeah,
Pandora's
yeah,
box
yeah.
of EVPs. Well, I met
Popular now.
two people that never got a single EVP on their DR60, and I said, "Let me see it." One was at the Conjuring House. This gentleman spent $2,800 on a DR60 that he bought on eBay from Israel. He had over 99 recordings, and he's like, "I don't know. I never got one EVP on this thing." I says, "Follow me. Let's go down to the well room." I hit the record button 3 times, and we got three EVPs. And the kid,
Oh my.
yeah, and then another friend of mine.
There
There
we
you go. That
go.
that's a real that one's in really nice. I wish mine was in as good a shape as that.
Yeah, usually they're kind of beat up and they get
Yeah,
the silver
yeah.
tone off them and all that.
Mine's been through the mill and not Slater mill. Um,
Right.
but and then another a friend of mine, Tammy, she's from out Western Mass, and she spent near because she sees everybody's using them and people are getting results on them. And she went out, she spent almost 3 grand on hers, and she said the same thing to me. She's like, "I've never gotten a single EVP on this thing." And I was like, "Well, we were in Murdoch Whitney house." I says, "Do you mind if I use it for the night?" And we started getting EVPs with it. And she's like, "I was beginning this thing was broken, you know." So
Oh, what did they get? 1995, back in the 90s. That comes from Dead Air Full Spectrum. Yeah, Dead Air Nation. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
well, so that was a
Pretty-
really good one. We were in the like the chapel room,
Right.
right? The room where all the religious things are, and they have like a priest smock, like a priest gown and an
Man, you think I'd
organ. And
have to bring in something.
so I just, you know, again, and I always try and think of something provocative when I ask a question, like, "What year did you die?" Like I try and think of something provocative, that something that, oh, I got to answer this one. This isn't the what year do I think it is? You know what I mean?
Right.
I just said, I said, and it was the truth. I said, "Somebody told me there's no religion in heaven. Is that true?" And we play the recorder back, and the EVP came. "You've got to believe."
Oh,
Clear as day. You've got to believe.
perfect. And you couldn't ask for a better answer from a living person, a living
Yeah.
personality.
Yeah.
Well, believe it or not, we have reached our final minute. Uh, I mean, I've been undisciplined. I just want to talk more about this and listen to you, Joe. Let's think about this as part one. We
Sure.
always say that to our guests, Elise and I, that we'd like to have you back because they're always enthralling. But I really want to talk more about this, and I want to get
Yeah,
you
we
on the air
should.
saying,
Yeah.
And we'll bring some examples next time. We'll make sure that's
Yes,
queued
yes,
up.
yes, 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 yes,
But
yes, yes. Yeah,
we have time for that. But yeah, I just think it's the best piece of evidence. Your own senses come into play, and maybe they do with you, even though it should be just objective. That you record, you get a voice if it's there, but like I said, your channel being there, your frequency facilitates that because of the experiences you've had. You know.
yeah. Like I said, I went years. I'm surprised I stuck with it, to be honest with you, because I
Yeah.
was getting nothing for
What is
years.
advice to some listening, who might want to give up? Like, I'm just not getting things, but
I
when
just
you
think
do,
keep trying it. Use some of the tips that I mentioned. Don't hold it in
yeah.
your hand. Walk away. Another one. You do not need a DR60 to get an EVP. I mean, it
Well, the ads
helps.
for the DR60 are pretty snazzy. Yeah.
They help. There's something about them. I think
Yeah.
the circuitry is so simplistic that's why they yield a lot of EVPs. But you do not need a DR6 to get an EVP.
Right.
I think it's more technique, and but I would also
More
recommend
technique.
getting something voice activated.
Right.
Yep,
Voice activated because
yep,
that eliminates
yep,
certain noise,
yep.
extraneous noise.
100%.
Well, one last question. How do we best get in touch with Joe Rainone if
Facebook page.
some people want to continue this?
I still have some Facebook friend room, so you can reach me, Joe Renoni, on Facebook, and along the bottom is the website for the team. We have a wonderful team of investigators. We probably
Right.
have
You do.
about 10 or 12 investigators. So if I can't answer a question or it's something out of my expertise, there's other resources there.
Mm. Well, I want to get back out there in the field with you, Joe.
Yeah,
I would like to
we
thank
should
you.
do we got to do something.
And I consider Elise indispensable. As hopefully Elise will be able to join us too. But you're realist, and I call Elise a pragmatist. We don't thoroughly scrutinize everything because you wouldn't pay attention to anything, any results if you did. But we analyze later. But we just want to get out there and see what we can capture and experience.
It's
If
fun.
we can capture it, record it, all the better.
All the better.
Well,
Yep.
thank you, Mr. Joe Rainone
Thank
of
you, Mr.
Paranormal
Johnson.
New England, and we will speak soon.
All right,
Hang
sir.
around for a
Thank you
bit
very
later.
much.
Okay. Good night, everybody. Thank you for tuning into Panoramic Paranormal through Dead Air.